topic, I'm going to get right to it, is of course voting in Islam, a democracy in Islam, and of course the current US elections and the vote. I am hoping that you have all voted, and if you haven't, you still have till 8 o'clock, and some places are extending their polling hours. So watch the show on Sling later. I would encourage everybody to vote. I have already casted my vote. I have received a few messages from our audience for Understanding Faith asking me where my vote is going. So I don't want to influence anybody by giving out who I am supporting. I don't want to influence anybody. I feel this is a personal choice and decision that everybody has to make for themselves. But what I will say is that I stand up for the rights of all minorities, including the gay community, and I stand up for the greater good of society. So whichever candidates that I felt were going to do the greater good, those are whom I cast my vote for. And I hope that when you are casting your vote, or when you casted your vote today, or when you cast your vote in the future, that this is going to be the prime agenda or prime motivation for you. Which candidate is going to bring about more democracy? Which candidate is going to bring about more peace? Which candidate is going to bring about more social justice? Which candidate is going to bring about peace in the Middle East and the world, of course? And which candidate is going to uphold everybody's equal rights and not usurp our rights? And who is going to be, in general, following the greater good of the people in America, and then, of course, the people in the whole world in general? We are citizens of a great country, the United States of America. We are, the whole world is looking at us, and our president has to be the person, or our leaders have to be people that will lead us with peace, with kindness, with justice, and will work for the greater good of the majority. So if somebody is watching out for special interests, if somebody has private agendas, self-motivating reasons, then obviously those are not the perfect candidates or the right candidates. Now, of course, the question arises that is there a possibility that politicians can be that sincere, or can have such great ideals, or will truly work for the people? So what I will say is that, yes, I have hope. And I do believe that some people, there are always going to be some good people in politics. There are going to be people that are going to be driven by special interest groups, but there will be always people that will be driven by the betterment of society, the people, and they are conscionable human beings. And the other thing is that we do know that we can't always have perfection with the candidates. But as I said earlier, the Islamic point of view tells us that we have to try for a betterment in society, a greater good. And actually, I'm reminded of a verse from the Quran, because a lot of people are calling me also, or messaging us at TV One, and bringing out this entire controversy of, is voting right in Islam? Is it halal? Is it haram? Is it forbidden to vote? Is it true that, what is the Islamic status on voting? And then what is the Islamic status on current day democracy? So I thought this would be a good topic, especially because today we have the US elections. So when we talk about voting, or any action, actually, anything that we do in our lives, anything that we touch on, the first and foremost thing, my dear viewers, that I want to say is that God has to be followed 24/7. When I say we follow God, God has laid down certain principles in society to observe. The prime being peace, social justice, and equality of races, religions, men and women, and for goodness and happiness to prevail in society. So when we want to achieve these goals, of course, we have to vote. I don't know where this concept came that voting is un-Islamic, but in the Western world, there are many radical Muslims who are bringing forth the ideology that, voting is forbidden in Islam, or the Western system of government is not godly. So we have to think logically, because Islam, what does Islam promote? Islam doesn't promote saying God and Prophet and Islam all the time. That is not what the Prophet promoted. Actually, the Prophet preached very quietly for several years, about 13 years. He did not say Islam, Islam, Islam. That is not the teachings of Islam. The teachings of Islam are a practical application in our society of peace, justice, and equality. These are the teachings of Islam. For everyone to receive justice, for everyone to have peace, for everyone to have security, for everyone to have liberty, and for everybody to have the basic human rights of food, clothing, shelter, education, and medicine. This is what Islam propagates, and a system which is promoting these things are going to be considered an Islamic place, an Islamic state, or a place where Islamic ideologies are promulgated, and where Islamic ideologies are not prohibited and that are encouraged. Because any state in which these things flourish that I have mentioned are going to be Islamic. And then when we are observing these principles and we want to bring about these principles of peace, equality, social justice, and human rights, of course we have to vote. Because if we do not go out and vote, then how are we going to elect the right candidates? Or how are we going to test the candidates that we believe in? So actually, again, in answer to this question of should we vote, is it Islamic to vote? Is it un-Islamic? Is it something that is only should be part of the Western system and Muslims should shun it? I'm reminded of one verse of the Quran. And actually, this is only one verse. There's several verses regarding this, that we have to help each other in virtue, in attaining justice. We have to enjoin good. We have to forbid evil. We have to help the people who are doing that. And we have to give the government and trust the government or leadership to those people who we know will become the right custodians. Surah Shura, which is a whole chapter of the Quran, I believe it's the 42nd chapter, that talks about so many principles of consulting with each other, democratic principles, and how a Muslim government should be led. And democracy is at the cornerstone of these messages. So just let me read. It's a very short and sweet verse from Surah Al-Ma'idah, which is the 5th chapter of the Quran. And it says, let me just read it. وَلَا تَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْإِثْمِ وَالْعُدْوَانِ وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ إِنَّ اللَّهَ شَدِيدُ الْعِقَابِ. It's a very short and sweet verse, which says, help you one another in righteousness and piety, but not help one another in sin and rancor. So help you one another in righteousness and piety, and not help one another in sin and rancor. Fear God, for God is strict in punishment. And to go to the Urdu translation, it says, एक दूसरे की मावनत करो, नेकी और भलाई के कामों में एक दूसरे की मावनत ना करो, और गुनाह और मासियत और जुल्म में एक दूसरे का साथ ना दो, और खुदा से डरो, अल्लाह से डरो, और अल्लाह जो है सजा देने में बेइंतहा सख्त है. So this is the first thing, because it's such a short and sweet verse, I thought I'll quote it, that God is actually enjoining us. He's asking us and telling us that you have to help each other in good and virtuous acts. And you have to not help people when they're doing something unjust or committing a sin or a transgression or usurping someone's rights or the rights of anyone in society, any group, any minority group, because usually it's the minority groups that are targeted. So we need to understand, Muslims everywhere need to understand that voting is part of the Islamic system. Voting is part of the Islamic system to cast our vote. There is nothing un-Islamic about casting our vote, and in the Quran, Allah has told us in many places to help each other, and it's commanded the Prophet ﷺ also in many verses and chapters to consult others, to rule justly, to have mercy, to believe in doing good and to do good to everybody, and to uphold the democratic principles. What are democratic principles? What are they? Democratic principles are when we have everybody's rights upheld, when there is equality between religions, there is equality between races, there is equality between men and women, rich and poor, everybody has the right to the same resources. So we need to understand that when people are making Islam a little religion, not an actual code of life, that is when they talk about these dogmatic things. So do not fall prey unto these kind of messages. मैं आप सब बहन भाइयों को ये कहना चाह रही हूँ कि इस्लाम के अंदर कई ऐसे लोग हैं जो इस तरह की बात करते हैं कि वोटिंग इस्लाम के खिलाफ है या हराम है, या इस्लाम में जो वेस्टर्न डेमोक्रेसी का कॉन्सेप्ट है, इस्लाम में इसका कोई कॉन्सेप्ट नहीं है। तो मेरे बहन भाइयों, हमें अपनी अकल और समझ से समझना है। अल्लाह पाक ने जगह जगह कुरान पाक में कहा है कि नेक कामों में एक दूसरे की मावनत करो, एक दूसरे की मदद करो, गुनाह और मासियत को रोक लो, एक दूसरे को रोको इस गलत काम करने से, आगे बढ़ो और अपने लिए कोशिश करो कुछ अच्छे की, और अपने साथियों की भी भलाई के लिए, सोसाइटल भलाई के लिए भी कोशिश करो। हुजूर पाक सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम ने मुस्तकिल दूसरों की भलाई के लिए काम किया। इस्लाम का मतलब ये नहीं है कि हम इस्लाम 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 कहते रहें या ये नारा लगाते रहें। हमें इस्लाम को प्रैक्टिकल एप्लीकेशन देखना पड़ेगा। जमहूरियत या डेमोक्रेसी क्या चीज है? जमहूरियत या डेमोक्रेसी एक ऐसा निज़ाम है जिसमें हर एक को इंसाफ मिलता है, जिसमें हर इंसान का वोट काउंट होता है, जिसमें हर इंसान को बेसिक ह्यूमन राइट्स उसको प्रोवाइड किए जाते हैं और उसको मिलते हैं। तो जब हम एक जगह पर रह रहे हैं, किसी भी मुल्क में हम रहें, पाकिस्तान में, इंडिया में, यूएस में, चाइना में, यूरोप में, जहां भी हम रहें, हम पर लाजिम है कि हम इस चीज को लाइटली ना लें। वोटिंग को हमें कोशिश करके ऐसे कैंडिडेट्स लेकर आने हैं जिनके लिए हमें पता है कि ये तमाम हर इंसान की फलाह बहबूद के लिए काम करेंगे, ये ज्यादातर इंसानों की फलाह बहबूद के लिए काम करेंगे। उनके अंदर खुदा का खौफ है। जब मैं कहती हूं कि खुदा का खौफ है, तो मेरा कहने का मतलब ये है कि वो अपने ज़मीर पर चल रहे हों और जिस मजहब को भी वो फॉलो कर रहे हों, उसमें सब मजाहिब अच्छे हैं, सारे मजाहिब वही बात कर रहे हैं जो इस्लाम करता है हर मजहब में। बल्कि मुझे this reminds me of something from Deuteronomy, because voting in Bible, in the Deuteronomy chapter, there is also something that is said in Deuteronomy, and it says, "Let every person be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and those that exist have been instituted by God if they are doing rightful acts. Therefore, whoever resists the authorities that God has appointed, and they will incur God's judgment. And for the rulers have to not be a terror, but have to observe good conduct and not bad conduct. And then if they are observing that, you have to have fear of them and you have to support them." So basically in the Bible, in the Torah, in the Gospels, in the Quran, in the Psalms of David, this whole thing has been discussed, that the rulers have to be just and merciful and kind and treat everyone equally, and then the subjects or the governed have a duty to obey those governments. Now we know, based on the Quran, based on our common sense, based on wisdom, and based on history, that if the rulers are not following democratic ideals, if there is no social justice, and I talked about the founding fathers in the last episode we had, that when the English throne started to usurp people's rights, when the British king in those days, in the late 1800s, in the 1770s, when they became dictatorial, when there was no might, when might was right, when they were usurping the authorities of the people and not giving people their equal rights, the founding fathers got up, revolted, and rose against it, and formed a democratic government, the United States of America. So that is completely within the principles of Islam. We cannot separate anything that we do from Islam. Islam has to be observed 24/7. Islam has to be observed 24/7 in our lives, and voting, democracy, being part of a government or voting for a government is all part of this entire system and all part of being Islamic or being within the sphere of Islam. I'm being told that it's time for a break. Viewers, do not go. We have a very interesting topic at hand today. And if you haven't voted, please go out and vote. But think who you're voting for. I hope you're going to make that decision not with personal motivations, but with a lot of responsibility in your heart and mind. So inshallah, I'll see you within just a couple minutes. Please do not change the channel. We'll be right back. break. Amna Salahuddin is conducting your favorite show, Understanding Faith, and today's topic is voting, democracy, secularism, Islam, and all of these related topics. During the break, I got a text based on a dream, and there are many purposes we do this show, Understanding Faith. One purpose is, of course, to educate Muslims and non-Muslims on Islam. The other purpose is to educate Muslims and others on other religions and all the similarities between our faiths, and to bring about a world and a community of peace, love, and tolerance for each other's beliefs. And another thing that we do in Understanding Faith is interpret your dreams. So if you ever have a dream, and I try to give that interpretation, which will apply to about 98 or 99% of the people. So I just received an interesting dream for someone asked me to interpret it. So before I go back into the voting and democracy, etc., in Islam, I want to talk about it because this is kind of related, the dream, to today, somewhat to today's topic, or at least the dream is. So somebody has just written saying that they saw a big government official in their dream, and the government official was shaking hands with them and smiling up at them, and they wanted to know what the interpretation of this dream is. So to the brother that saw this dream, what I want to say is that the interpretation of this dream is that you will face some fear from authority or the government. There will be some fear you will face, but nothing bad will happen to you, because when you saw the dream, you saw that the official was smiling at you, shaking hands. So even though you might face a fear from authority, nothing bad will happen. And just like that, if there's anybody else with any other dream, you can go ahead and text it, and inshallah, I will attempt to give you the meaning. But I have also said that when you text me your dreams, please tell me what time of the morning or night you saw the dream, because then I can also tell you when you can expect this to happen in your life. So I hope that satisfies the person, and anybody else that has seen people in authority, you will face some kind of a fear or some kind of fear from authority, but inshallah, all will be well in the end, especially if the authority figure was not imposing anything bad to you or not angry at you. Inshallah, it will be fine. And in the end, we know that Allah is the biggest authority. God is the biggest authority. So whenever you see a dream that you feel is not good or good, pray to Allah immediately. And that's what Prophet ﷺ did. He always prayed to God Almighty and asked for the best meaning of that dream to come true for him. And that is what we have to do. But based on the study and research and what I have received, the knowledge that I have received, I'm giving that interpretation. And actually, 99% of the people, when they see this dream, they have told me that that is exactly what it meant for them. So going back to voting and Islam and democracy, the other point that I really want to mention is that we keep hearing about secularism versus Islam. We have to, as Muslims, broaden our horizons, broaden our mind and our perspectives, broaden our hearts, and know what different terms mean. We throw words around like Islamic government, Islamic state, secular government, secular state, without really understanding or really pondering on what these terms mean and what they are. So what I want to say is that first and foremost, a true Islamic state doesn't have to be called an Islamic state. Just like that, if there is a secular state that has all the Islamic principles, as I said earlier, of equality, gender equality, religious freedom, racial equality, social equality, justice, human rights, then they don't have to keep saying that this is an Islamic state, even if it is called a secular state. But that state is formed on all the Islamic principles, all the good principles. Then that state will be the true Islamic state. So please do not confuse these terms with the real Islam. I hear the terms Islamic Republic of Pakistan, Islamic Republic of this country, Islamic Republic of that country. And the majority of the politicians, and we hear how corrupt they are. We hear how much they stole from the people, and we hear how much the rich become richer and the poor become poorer, and there is so much disparity. So the names Islamic Republic of something do not mean anything, and the name secular state doesn't mean that it is a state of kufr or of kafirun as some radical or extremist Muslims are propagating. تو میں اس پوائنٹ کو تھوڑا سا اردو میں سم اپ کر دوں. ہمارے مذہب کے اندر یا لوگوں کے منہ سے میں یہ بہت زیادہ سنتی ہوں کہ فلانا ملک اسلامی ملک ہے، فلانا ملک سیکولر ملک ہے، اور فلانا ملک کافروں کا ملک ہے. تو یہ ساری باتیں ہمیں ان باتوں کے اوپر سوچنا اور سمجھنا ہے کہ ہم کیا سن رہے ہیں اور کیا کہہ رہے ہیں. اسلامک اسٹیٹ ہونے کا مطلب یہ نہیں ہے کہ وہ اسٹیٹ اپنے آپ کو اسلامک کہے گا، کیونکہ ان اسٹیٹس اپنے آپ کو اسلامک کہتے ہیں آج کل کے زمانے میں انہوں نے اسلامی جو پنشمنٹس ہیں، حدود وغیرہ اپنے کورٹ سسٹم میں جہاں پر رائج کر لیتے ہیں اس کو اسلامک اسٹیٹ کہتے ہیں. اسلامی سزاؤں کو اپنے کورٹ سسٹم میں رائج کرنا ایک بہت اچھی چیز ہے. اسلام کی سزائیں سخت اسی لیے ہیں تاکہ مجرم کو عبرت پہنچے اور مجرم دوبارہ وہ جرم نہ کرے اور معاشرہ گناہوں اور برائی سے پاک ہو جائے. مگر ہمیں عقل اور سمجھ سے فیصلہ کرنا ہے. بہت سارے اسلامی ممالک ہیں جو اپنے آپ کو اسلامی ممالک کہتے ہیں یا اسلامک مملکت کہتے ہیں، مگر اسلام دور دور تک نظر نہیں آتا اور اسلام صرف چند سزاؤں پر محدود کر دیا گیا ہے. اسی طرح ویسٹرن ورلڈ بھی اسلامک ریپبلک کا نام جہاں آتا ہے وہ یہی سمجھتے ہیں ویسٹ میں لوگ کہ یہاں پر اسلامی سخت سزائیں لوگوں کو دی جا رہی ہیں. اسی طرح سے جب ہم سیکولر کا ورڈ سمجھتے ہیں تو بہت سے مسلمان سمجھتے ہیں کہ یہ لفظ بہت ہی زیادہ ڈینجرس ہے، اس سے بہت سے لوگ سمجھتے ہیں کہ اسلام خطرے میں پڑ جائے گا. میرے بہن بھائیوں، میرے محترم آڈینس، پلیز تھنک، تھوڑا سا سوچیں. اللہ تعالیٰ نے کہا ہے کہ اپنی عقل، سمجھ اور حکمت ہر موقع پر بروئے کار لاؤ. جس معاشرے میں انصاف ہے، امن ہے، بھائی چارہ ہے، لوگوں کو ساری بیسک ہیومن رائٹس، روٹی، کپڑا، مکان، دوا، تعلیم مل رہی ہے، وہ معاشرہ جہاں پر ہر انسان کو یہ آزادی ہے کہ وہ چین سے اپنا مذہب فالو کرے، جہاں پر مردوں اور عورتوں کی ایکوالٹی ہے، جہاں پر ریشل ایکوالٹی ہے، کالے گورے کسی بھی انسان میں کوئی بڑا یا چھوٹا نہیں مانا جاتا. تو ہر وہ معاشرہ جس میں یہ پرنسپلز ہوں گے وہ اسلامی معاشرہ کہلائے گا، وہ معاشرہ اسلامک پرنسپلز پر ہوگا. We have to come out of the mindset of seeing things in terms of words and terms. Islam is not a name or a label, it is a spirit. وہ اسپرٹ، ایک جو روح ہے اسلام کی، وہ یہ ہے کہ ہر جگہ پر ایکوالٹی ہو. جو ریاست مدینے میں تھی، میں نے پچھلی دفعہ میثاق مدینہ اور کانسٹیٹیوشن آف مدینے کا بتایا اور اس کو کمپیئر کیا ڈیکلریشن آف انڈیپینڈنس سے، کہ جس طرح ڈیکلریشن آف انڈیپینڈنس میں فاؤنڈنگ فادرز نے لائف، لبرٹی، پرسوٹ آف ہیپینس کی بات کی تھی، اسی طرح میثاق مدینہ میں بھی حضور پاک صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم نے یہی بات کی کہ جان محترم ہے، ہر انسان کو حق ہے کہ وہ اپنے اپنے مذہب پہ قائم رہے. ہر فیصلہ ہر ایک کے ریپرزینٹیٹیو، ہر ایک کے نمائندے کے ساتھ مل کر ہوگا، خون بہا بند کر دیا جائے گا. جس معاشرے میں یہ باتیں ہوں، انصاف کا معاشرہ ہو، امن چین کا معاشرہ ہو، جہاں عورتوں، بچوں، مردوں سب کو حقوق ان کے مل رہے ہوں، وہ معاشرہ اسلامی معاشرہ کہلائے گا اور وہ معاشرہ اسلامی پرنسپلز پر کھڑا ہوا ہے. So please do not go with just words. Words are nothing. اپنے آپ کو مسلمان کہنا، ہندو کہنا، یہودی کہنا، عیسائی کہنا، یہ لیبلز ہیں. These are labels. We can't go with the labels. We have to go with the spirit behind the words and what in actuality or practically is happening. So as I said, according to the words of the Quran, God tells us to choose the righteous people. And then I was mentioning that in the Bible, in the Torah, in the different scriptures, God has said the same thing. I'm just reminded of another verse from a chapter in the Bible, Deuteronomy, which says, choose from your tribes wise, understanding, and experienced men, and I will appoint them as your heads. So God is saying in the Bible, choose wise, good, understanding, and experienced men who know how to give you your rights, who know how to uphold peace, justice, and equality in society. Just like that, the Quran says similar things. I am going to try to pick out a verse or two. It says, I'll read out a verse from Surah Nisa, verse 59, which says, Ya ayyuhal lazina amanu, atiu Allaha wa atiu Rasula wa ulil amri minkum, fa in tanazatum fi shay'in farudduhu ila Allahi wa Rasuli in kuntum tu'minuna billahi wal yawmil akhir, zalika khayran wa ahsanu ta'wila. O you who believe, obey God, obey the messenger, and charge with authority those amongst you who are worthy of your trust. And if you differ in anything amongst yourselves, refer it to God and his messenger and his book. If you do believe in God and the last day, if you believe in Allah and the last day, that is the best and most suitable for final determination. So God is saying, people, obey God. And what does obeying God mean? To do good all the time, 24/7, to be unselfish, to be kind, to establish prayer, to give charity, to help everybody, to love others like we love ourselves and our children, our families, to be good with others, to be kind to the minorities, to be kind to the people whose rights are being usurped, to feel for them. That is being godly. So God is saying, obey God, obey the messenger, and entrust the government to those people who are worthy of your trust. So think about it. Ponder on it, entrust it to the right people, and once you entrust it, obey them, just like you would do God and the messenger. And then if there is a difference, if something is not right, then you turn it to God and turn it to the prophet and turn it to the holy book and see what that is saying. So we have to always try to keep the peace, keep the diplomacy, keep discord out of our lives. Somebody else had texted to me and asked me to talk about one other point, that, Muslims or Pakistanis were a very small community in the US, but that they are being divided even within the US election. So what I'm going to say for that is, please vote with your conscience, vote believing that you're voting for the right candidates. Do not just think of your country of origin or your own group. Think of the greater good of society, what that is saying. And then if you have considered all these angles and then you're going to vote, everybody is voting for different candidates, that is all right. Our hearts have to be in the right spot. But please do not vote out of selfish motivations, and also do not hate the other person who's voting differently than you. Everybody has their own mind and intellect and has a reason to vote the way they do. We cannot taunt others or mock others. That is not the Islamic character. We talk about Islam and we say the word Islam and Muslim liberally, but what are we doing in our lives to follow it? The first thing that Islam teaches us, that the word Islam means surrender to the will of God, and it's a derivative of the word peace. The word Islam means salam, which is peace. So if Islam is not bringing about peace, love, and mercy in our hearts, then what Islam are we following, my dear viewers? We have to know that. I just read the verse, about voting, because so many people are asking about who to vote for, what to vote. Is voting Islamic? Voting is 100% Islamic. 24/7, all actions that we do either fall under Islam or outside of Islam. All the actions that we do that are unselfish, that are good, that are kind, that keep the greater good of the society in mind, not just our own, those are Islamic actions. And everything that we do that is selfish and unkind and deceitful and unjust and bad for others is un-Islamic. So Islam is not just a religion, it's a code of life. But to observe that code of life, we don't have to keep saying Islam, Islam, Islam. We have to practice it in our daily lives. That's reminding me of another verse from the Quran, because I want to talk about what the ideal Muslim society is. Whether somebody calls themselves Muslims, a Muslim society or an Islamic republic or not, this is what Allah has said is the true Muslim society. I'm going to just read a few excerpts. I believe it's Surah Al-An'am, which is the 6th chapter. And it says, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الْمَالَ الْيَتَامَ إِلَّا بِالَّتِي أَحْسَنُ حَتَّى يَبْلُغَ أَشُدَّهُ وَأَوْفُوا الْكَيْلَ وَالْمِيزَانَ بِالْقِسْطِ لا نكلف نفسا إلا وسعها وإذا قلتم فاعدلوا ولو كان ذا قربى وبعهد الله أوفوا ذلك وصاكم به لعلكم تذكرون. So this is these are very basic concepts in Islam, and actually this is one verse that I'm reading, but it is there in many verses. Let me read the translation. And come not nigh to the orphan's property, male yatim ke qareeb mat jao, except to improve it. उसको बेहतर बनाने के लिए सिर्फ उसके लिए जा सकते हो, उस यतीम के लिए काम करने के लिए, मगर जाती ख्वाहिशात लेकर उसके करीब ना फटकना. Until he attains the age of strength. Give measure and weight with full justice. यानी नाप तोल में पूरा अदल कायम रखो, नाप तोल में इंसाफ से काम लो. No burden do we place on any soul but that which it can bear. So whenever you speak, speak justly. जब भी बात करो, इंसाफ की बात करो. Even if a near relative is concerned, चाहे वो तुम्हारे करीबी अजीज के खिलाफ बात क्यों ना जा रही हो, इंसाफ की बात करो, अदल की बात करो, नाप तोल में कमी ना करो, मीज़ान में खलल ना डालो. And fulfill the covenant of Allah. अल्लाह के अहद को पूरा करो. Then thus doth he command you that you may remember. That's what God is commanding, that you may remember. So Islam is, and then God is saying, verily this is my way, leading straight, follow it, not other crooked paths. तो अल्लाह ताला ने कुरान पाक में एक जस्ट सोसाइटी के लिए बता दिया है कि उसके अंदर हमें क्या करना है. हमें अदल और इंसाफ से काम लेना है. हमें नाप तोल में कमी नहीं करनी. हमें हम किसी के माल के करीब नहीं जा सकते. और यतीम की मिसाल इसलिए दी है क्योंकि यतीम एक मजबूर और बेकस बच्चा होता है, जिसका कोई नहीं होता, उसका कोई सरबराह नहीं होता. तो अल्लाह ताला ने माइनॉरिटीज की राइट्स को इस तरह बताया है. तो मेरे बहन भाइयों, माय डियर व्यूअर्स, ये है इस्लामी मुआशरा, जिसमें अदल इंसाफ कायम हो, जिसमें इंसान हर चीज सही करे. वो इस्लामी मुआशरा है. वो माशरे में इस्लामी प्रिंसिपल्स हैं. So we have to be very clear that it doesn't matter whether something is a secular state, something is an Islamic republic of something, Islamic state. It is actually what is happening within that state. Time to take a short break. We will be right back. Please don't change that channel, viewers, and call back with your dreams or text me with your questions and dreams, and inshallah, I'll be right back with the answer. Welcome back after the break, viewers. Amna Salahuddin is conducting your show, Understanding Faith. Today's topic is the U.S. elections, democracy, voting, and secularism, secular state versus Islamic state. So, what I was saying right before we went on break is that secularism and Islam, being an Islamic state, are just terms and words. We have to look at exactly what is happening in that society because Allah gives us clear guidelines as to what an Islamic society is. But before I go back into the topic, I received another dream during the break. And I know that a couple of other people in the past have also mentioned this dream. So I'm sure some of you are watching this dream from time to time. So someone has written saying that they saw that they were driving on the road, but their car was getting out of control and it was speeding up and they couldn't keep very good control of their car. And they wanted to know what it means and what the significance of that is. So what I'm going to say to that is, viewers, that according to the dream interpretation, that driving your car means managing your affairs and your life. So if your car was getting out of control, it is possible that some of your affairs are not going in the order that you are wanting them to go. So it's time to stop, check everything, and see where a change has to be made for things to go smoother. So when Allah shows us a dream, it is most of the dreams that we see are prophetic. About 80 to 90% of the dreams are prophetic, which means that they carry a meaning and they carry a warning or they carry some kind of a news for us that we have to think about. So when you see a dream, Allah is actually communicating to us through that dream. So think about it, talk to a person that is well versed in the Quran or is a scholar of dreams. You can also call into the show or just think about it, pray to Allah. And when you pray on something and you meditate, you ponder, you spend some time on your musalla and your janamas thinking about it, asking God for help, and Allah will himself make you understand what that dream meant. So going back to the Islamic society, I wanted to quote one other verse. I know that there are several about what a just and Islamic society is, but I thought I would quote one other. It's from, it's from Surah 57, Al-Hadid. And it says, وَلَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا رُسُلُنَا بِالْبَيِّنَاتِ وَأَنزَلْنَا مَعَهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْمِيزَانَ لِيَقُومَ النَّاسُ بِالْقِسْطِ. And again, I'm reading only part of the verse, just some of it. And it says, we sent aforetime our messengers with clear signs and sent down with them the book and the balance. And the book and the balance of right and wrong, that men may stand forth in justice. तो अल्लाह ताला ने इस आयत में भी ये कहा है कि हमने रसूल भेजे, अपने मैसेंजर्स भेजे खुली निशानियों के साथ और उनको किताब और हिकमत और मीज़ान के साथ भेजा, यानी कि हर चीज़ में इंसाफ का तराजू हाथ में रहे और इंसाफ का बोलबाला रहे और कभी भी कोई नाइंसाफ़ी की कोई बात ना हो. अल्लाह का यही हुक्म है, रसूलों का यही पैगाम था और रसूल इसी हुक्म की तामील करने आए थे कि हर जगह इंसाफ का बोलबाला हो और अदल का बोलबाला हो. तो इस्लामी मुआशरा वही है जिसमें इंसाफ का बोलबाला होता है. And let me see if I can come to another few verses. When people are also, sending us emails and questions on this topic of voting, saying that, the talks that I'm giving are very ideal situations and the politicians or the people we're voting for are not that great or that good. So how do we choose? So as I had said in the beginning, we want to choose, of course, the lesser evil. We want to choose out of those the people who are better than the others. We know that unfortunately this is not a Riyasat-e-Medina, or these are not those ideals, or these are not even the ideals of the founding fathers currently where we are sitting, but we have to at least follow those leaders or choose those people who are better than the others. And we have to, of course, study, read up on their lives, their policies before we make a decision. But coming to that, I thought I would quote another few verses of the Quran. It's in Surah Shura again, because Surah Shura is actually which means Shura means consultation, and that is our chapter from the Quran on democracy. So it says, وَالَّذِينَ يَجْتَنِبُونَ كَبَائِرَ الْإِثْمَ وَالْفَحِشَ وَإِذَا مَا غَضِبُوا هم يغفرون والذين استجابوا لربهم وأقاموا الصلاة وأمرهم شورى بينهم ومما رزقناهم ينفقون وَالَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَهُمُ الْبَغْيَ هُمْ يَنْتَصِرُونَ. So I'm just going to read. It's from verse 37 to 39 in Surah Shura. And it says, those, basically, God is talking about the better kind of people, those who avoid the greater crimes and shameful deeds. And when they are angry, even then they forgive. Those who hearken to their Lord and establish regular prayer, who conduct their affairs by mutual consultation, who spend out of what we bestow onto them for sustenance, and those who, when an oppressing wrong is inflicted on them and others, help and defend themselves and everyone. They're not cowed, they're not cowardly. So what I'm going to say is, how do we know if a candidate is doing that, if he's taking the name of God, if he's giving charity? Well, we have a lot of candidates whose tax returns are open, and we will know many people through their tax returns. I remember when Barack Obama was the presidential candidate many years ago, people looked at his charitable records because his tax returns showed that he paid 10% of charity. So many people made their determination based on the charitable donations that he made. And similarly, we have the lives of the candidates in front of us. We have to, as God is saying, they avoid the greater wrongs or the greater misdemeanors. They avoid major crimes. They have forgiveness in their hearts. They are trying to be better. They are trying to do good. So when someone is trying to do good, they are sorry about anything wrong they do, and they're trying to better themselves as a human being. It is pretty obvious, because once we really do some in-depth research and study up on their lives and their policies, we can track what kind of lives they're leading and then make our decisions based on that. So it is not that difficult to track. Now, the other question that somebody has just asked me, and it's going to become a little bit of a vast topic. I don't know if I can fully cover it, but someone said about the electoral college. Somebody just sent me a message saying that, what about the electoral college? Is that true democracy, or how would you consider the electoral college? So yes, it is true that in the US there is an electoral college, and the electoral college is based on winner take all, because even if a state has a majority popular vote, then it is not considered, because even supposing 51% people in a state vote for one candidate and 49 for another, the people that voted for the 49 candidates, their vote will not be upheld, because the winner, the electors from that state, will only vote for the majority. So what I'm going to say about the electoral college is that I am not a big fan of it. I am a student of political science and history, and I have read up on it. Not now, it's been a long time, so I can't give you an in-depth review of it. But I'm not a major fan of it, because I do believe more in the popular vote. The electoral college had a lot of meaning when in 1776, because the states were distinct states with many times different cultures, religions, nationalities they came from, and separate languages in many instances, and very distinct ideologies. They were independent states and colonies. The original 13 colonies were independent states. They did not have that much in common, except that they all wanted to rise in revolt for social justice and peace. And they wanted to rise up against the British king, who was usurping their rights. And it was not a just and social system in those days under King George, or whoever the king was at that time. So in those days, the electoral college made sense, because every state needed to have that representation. But now in America, the states have become more homogenized. There is a Walmart, McDonald's, Burger King everywhere. So the states are more unified than ever. And even though they're each independent politically, there are still several commonalities. English is spoken pretty much in most of the states. And overall, the states have become closer to each other in their pattern and in everything that they do. So it doesn't look to me like the electoral college in this day and age has the same relevance that it had in the late 1800s or in the 1770s or in the early 19th century. I don't think it has the same relevance, but that is the system prevalent here, so we have to go with it. Yes, I do not personally, I'm not a big fan of it. I do think it's not that relevant to today's society, because we have at least 5 times in the US governmental election history that somebody won the popular vote but was not elected to be the official. I think in the last elections, we know in 2016 that happened several years ago. I don't know if it was 2000 or when it was, when Al Gore was running. The same thing happened. He won by popular majority. But George Bush was, became president. I hope I'm quoting it all correctly. But I'm not a big fan of it. But because we are living here, we cannot let the Electoral College and its defects stop us from voting. I have already said that, and we have to be part of this system and make sure that we elect the right officials, which uphold all the Quranic principles that I just mentioned today in today's discourse, of social justice, of the right for everybody to follow their religion and their belief, for men and women to have gender equality, for racial equality, for wealth to be not concentrated in the hands of a few, but to have a just economic system in which the government is taking care of the poor or the underprivileged or the underprivileged classes. So we have to try and vote for those candidates to bring them into power. So voting is not just a choice. I would say that it is enjoined. It is very important for us Muslims and Pakistanis, and really whatever religion you belong to as a human being, to do everything that we do according to the laws of God and according to our conscience, to do it in a conscionable manner. And what is a conscionable manner? God is saying in his book to uphold justice at all times. We cannot, even I just quoted a verse a little while ago in which God is saying, even if it involves a near relative, your kith and kin, speak the truth. Speak the word of God truthfully and rule with justice. So we have to, my dear viewers, always uphold the principles of justice, equality, and human rights. So we have to vote to try to bring about those candidates. If those candidates are not chosen, then we have to constantly work towards that. But while we're working towards that, everything has to be done peacefully. Let's not bring about discord and lawlessness in society. If we are observing the true Muslim character, we will always uphold peace. We will always uphold respect for other people's views, and we will always uphold tolerance. We need to understand that Islam is not a label. Islam is not just a religion. It is our life 24/7. And voting comes in that, democracy comes in that, Islamic principles of peace, justice, and equality are all part of that. And we are Islam when we follow those principles. And it is an Islamic state when these principles are founded and when these principles are followed. So inshallah, I will see you again next Tuesday live on the show. Don't forget to send your questions. You can call us live into the show. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu wa maghfiratuhu.